I'm Shelby Assenheimer, and I'm part of the arts collective, Gage Gallery on Oak Bay Avenue. Today it is my first gallery showing, so I'm quite excited about it. I've been painting for quite a while. I've been an artist all my life. It's just part of who I am, what I am. Everything I approach, it's in a creative, artistic manner, whether I'm cooking, sewing, or gardening. And of course, I always have drawn or sketched and have done painting. In 2001 is when I finally was able to approach my art more seriously. Went back to a school in Ontario where I was living at the time, to the Dundas Valley School of Art. And there I went back to taking really basic classes in technique, color, composition, and learned about acrylic paints, what they do and what they won't do. And from there, that's when I started to paint more seriously. When I moved from Ontario to Victoria, there was a bit of a lull, building home and setting up business, etc. But eventually, probably I'd say 7 years ago is when I started to earnestly paint again. And it's when I discovered that I really like painting on very, very large canvases. I was inspired by a video that I saw with, as probably many people were, by Gerhard Richter, seeing how he uses his very large sort of palette knives and squeegees or whatever, and it occurred to me that I just didn't have to use a little paintbrush, that I could use tools that weren't necessarily sold in an art shop. And that's when I started to paint on much more larger canvases. Color, pattern, design are what really intrigue me, and I find that in nature. Everywhere I go, everything I see. Today, most of the paintings here are, I guess, about trees or plant life, and that's because that is what it offers to me. That's what I see, and they're often visions that I capture as I'm walking or driving. I'll just maybe catch them in my peripheral vision. I'll take them, mull it over for a while, and eventually it makes its way onto the canvas. As I say, color is very, very important to me. It captures my attention, and I do believe it is something that the viewer as well. So I like to think of art as it's the very essence of who I am. It's what I put on the canvas, and it is my way of connecting, communicating with the viewer. And I'm hoping that the viewer will take it in and take it for what it is and what they make it to be, and I put it in their hands. And I think that's about all I can say.
Only one question about the show. Kind of why you pair with the artist that is doing the furniture? Why you thought it was a good idea?
Why pairing with them? Met Oliver Scott back in August, I believe it was, before we opened up the gallery. I was very intrigued with his work. I like the idea, the word bothy, what it brought out. It's a very humble abode, and just simplified, very minimalist. I was just very intrigued by that. By also Oliver Scott. He's just a very, very nice person, very earnest, honest, I think, artisan that is wanting to show his art. And we came up with the title Wood and Canvas because a number of my paintings were of trees and wood, and of course he works with that same medium. So it's how when he looks at a tree, this is what he envisions. When I look at a tree, what you see on my canvas is what I envision. So it's how you can you know, it's our take on what a tree is or what the forest is, that sort of thing. Yeah. So.
When did you start building furniture?
I started when I came to Canada about 6 years ago, and I enrolled in a college course here in Victoria, which is a fine furniture program. So I did that. It was like a 10-month program, and before that I didn't really know anything. You know, I barely touched the table saw or anything like that. And then from there I worked with cabinet makers and a boat builder in town and a carpenter. Just kind of, you know, trying to learn as much as I possibly could. And then eventually, about almost 2 years ago now, I started off by myself, sort of trying to create my own aesthetic, or whatever you want to call it, designing, making furniture and cabinetry and that kind of thing.
You choose this type of wood that is in the furniture right now, or?
Yeah, I mean, all the wood I use is North American hardwoods. I mean, maybe, you know, like maybe I'd like to use other ones, but you know, I think it's good to use what's on your doorstep, and as you can see, there's, you know, a huge variety, you know, here without going too far afield. So yeah, I think it's good to make use of what's on your doorstep.
What wood is your favorite to work on?
I don't know, probably either white oak or walnut. Yeah. I think I really like white oak. I'd like to do a lot more with it. Like white oak has like almost has like a bad reputation, because I guess it was used maybe throughout the sort of the 80s, and people associate it with you know, kind of very sort of dated looking, badly stained sort of furniture. But I think it looks really great in a modern context, and I'd like to use it more.
Favorite designers in wood, and who inspire you to do your work?
I don't know that anyone really inspired me when I first began, but when I came to North America, I was suddenly introduced and became aware of a lot of people that I'd never heard of, and these people really blew my mind, like, because they're making things that I'd just never seen before. Being from Europe, I kind of grew up, you know, surrounded by a lot of sort of antique furniture as opposed to modern furniture, I think. Well, I guess with the exception of any sort of Scandinavian furniture, which is something that I do like. But when I came here, there's guys like one guy in particular called Art Carpenter. Funnily enough, like that is actually his name. And he had a style which was just of his own, kind of self-taught guy. And I really like people like that who just don't really play by the rules, and because they're self-taught, they try things that, you know, other people might not have thought of, and they come up with some pretty creative pieces in the end.
You have your own company now, or?
Yeah, I do. Yeah.
What's the name?
The name I go by is CaledoniaSilva, so which just ties into my background. So I'm from Scotland, and Scotland during Roman times, or the area that is Scotland now, was known as Caledonia, and CaledoniaSilva was basically the forested woodlands that once covered sort of great swathes of Scotland at the time, but sadly no longer. So yeah, just kind of a name that hopefully suits with my style, and trying to keep you know, craftsmanship alive, and you know, making stuff with integrity, and you know, not mass produced. That's the idea.
Are you going to open a store, or you?
No, you know, I like you know, when you're making pieces like this, I like the relationship that you get by selling something to a person, right? And it's like you meet them, you can shake their hand, and it's like a personal thing, right? Whereas I don't know how even realistic it, like to make something of a certain quality requires time, and it's not really something that can be mass produced for a store, I think.
You have a website?
I do, yeah.
Same name, like
It's the same, yeah. Just www.CaledoniaSilva.ca. Yeah, and I sell. You can purchase directly through the website. And I can ship across North America. I actually shipped a piece all the way to Norway in the last month. So, yeah. So it's hopefully going to grow.
how do you think your creations go with the paintings with the show? What's the relationship that you think is?
Well, I guess Shelby kind of, Shelby's work is off trees and forests and how they sort of speak to her. And funnily enough, when I first became involved with the gallery, I was asked if I would like to display some. I had a little display of my own, and I was asked if I'd like to display some of the artist's work at the same time. And Shelby was one of the artists that I that said, "Oh, I'd really like some of Shelby's work on the walls." So it's nice that she liked my work, and the feeling is mutual or whatever. So yeah, I think, and we're both quite sort of modern. So I think it works well.
I'm the artist, and this is my show.
Very good job.
My
I'll message you.
okay. No, I can do it. Don't look at it. Don't look at I'm healthier for it, whether they are or not.
We really like that cold part over there too.
Those are not forgiving at all.
Yeah, I like more of the smell.
Yeah.